for having me here in your beautiful studio, and welcome to my channel.
Thank you. I'm very excited about this chat.
So I'd like to start. What does working with materials actually feel like to you on a daily level? And why you chose to work with something so physical in our digital era?
When I started, actually, how the Letterist started was with my handwriting, and I was penning these sort of inspiring quotes on simple postcards and selling them, and people would write to me and order either something they had already seen from somebody else or send me their own inspiring quote or song lyrics, like a Kanye West song lyric to write. So it already started with paper and pen. I went to design school in New York at Parsons, expecting that the whole program would be very sort of computer and software based, and half of the day was completely by hand, drawing, cutting, folding, scoring, and I loved that part of it. It felt so fulfilling. It made me feel so alive and so inspired. It feels so good to kind of create something and feel it, see how tall it is. And then as the Letterist grew, I would get inquiries to do wedding invitations or business cards, things like that, and I immediately fell in love with letterpress printing, these old techniques that really, because of the pressure of these machines, require very specific paper that's usually cotton, usually very expensive, very hard to get. And the better the paper, the better the result. And so I kind of got into this world of fine papers and fine printing. I feel like the material, the paper itself, is a language. So, and often the design is, I try to keep it as minimal as possible so that the paper itself does a lot of the talking, and everything else is kind of usually to the edges of the layout so that it lets the paper be the main star of the piece.
You worked in different countries, and I guess that people from different cultures perceive your art and your work a little bit different. Have you noticed that at all, or are there some common things or some differences?
I think I would say yes and no. On the one hand, so much of what I try and create is based on emotion, on inspiration, on feelings, which I think are universal. Provided you can read something in English, it can have the exact same impact on someone regardless of where they are. I think there's definitely cultures in the US. There's a much more developed culture of stationery and handwritten correspondence, still very much alive and present in the modern day, that people send each other letters and thank you notes. And somewhere like Serbia, for instance, this is almost completely gone. So here, for instance, we have some people walk into the shop and pick up a card and go, what is this? Why is this piece of paper blank? Why are you selling blank pieces of paper? Like, the point is that you're supposed to write the message. So I think that we strive to create something that's going to inspire a feeling rather than something that's going to be understood. And so I would say there isn't a difference between different countries and cultures, just maybe how likely people are to buy and actually use these products in their day-to-day lives. I think that also in Serbia, especially for men, we had a conversation recently, there's a sort of machoism to the Serbian Balkan man who thinks it's not manly to write a note or to write his feelings down. So there are those elements, whereas in America, for instance, it's completely normal. It's not seen as a non-masculine thing to correspond on paper. But I hope we're going to change that.
Yeah, so for you, most of your customers and clients here are women?
We've only been open since the middle of December. So for the most part, a lot of the people who come into the shop are women. Again, I hope we're going to change that. I always say if the women love it, then hopefully their men are going to come, if for no other reason than to buy. But we have had some men as well, I think, over the years. And a lot of our clients over the years, because we work in weddings, are either wedding planners or brides and their sisters and mothers. So it is predominantly female. But we also have in the branding sector a lot of men we've worked with, photographers, interior designers, artists. So I hope that we can kind of bridge the gap. And the way that we've designed has always been an attempt to not be kind of girly and to change that stereotype of stationery being something that a nerdy girl in school is playing with, and make it something universal, make it a culture that we can all sort of enjoy and benefit from and pass on to others.
Your space is really gorgeous, and how it all came into being, why here in Belgrade, and how you created it, if you can share about this process.
We moved in here in early May last year. Initially, I was just looking to grow a team, and we were looking for an office space that was a bit bigger than what we had at the time. I was initially imagining a much more classic retail space with a shop front, and then when we moved in here and started working in the space, I discovered that Topolsko 18, the address, actually has quite a sort of urban legend to it. There are two famous sitcoms series, TV series that were filmed in this building, in the apartment below us. One of them is called Srećni ljudi, Happy People. The other one is Ljubav navika panika. But they're sort of like iconic sitcoms that people grew up watching every night, and there's a song, Topolsko 18, sung by Anja Savic. So it brings with it this kind of nostalgia and memories and joy for a lot of people. I realized we had kind of accidentally moved into, I don't know what to compare, like Central Perk for Friends, something that didn't exist. It was a made-up studio set, but it's something that it invokes a lot of emotion in people, which was great for us because the brand was quite new in this market. And then as we were living and working here, we moved between rooms. There are 4 or 5 different rooms. This was my office, then it was the studio, then it was something else. And I just realized how great would it be to have our first shop here, where it's right under our fingertips. And I love the idea of treating everything like a creative process. We really were designing the interior, designing the products, developing sort of retail systems all at the same time here, being able to be part of it every day, rather than building something downtown that we would have to have much more complex kind of logistics. I had also looked at spaces near Kalemegdan in Kralja Milana. Interestingly, right around the time that we started looking for space, all the protests started happening and the blocks in traffic. And I was like, how are we ever going to go downtown 2-3 times a day to create these products? So all the things that happened kind of magically fell into place, and we opened this in December. It's been a bit of a challenge because it's our office space as well, and so we're sometimes juggling the regular work that we do for clients and being available for the store and keeping everything tidy. I kept thinking of it as the store, as this particular room, but what we've done is really open up the whole space. People end up kind of wandering from room to room and looking at the bathroom and looking at the wall of inspiration in my office. So now I'm very excited to sort of expand this particular room further within this space.
And do you have plans of creating a community around this space with, I don't know, calligraphy classes or something?
I think we've already begun creating a community, and it's something I kind of didn't consciously think about as we were creating it. We were so focused on the retail and the sales that we've attracted a very specific type of woman. It's been incredible to meet. Almost every woman or every other woman who walks into the store is a photographer, an artist, a designer, a writer, a journalist. We kind of are attracting this very creative and literary group of people. We just introduced a newsletter for this space, which we're doing in the very old-fashioned way of physically collecting people's addresses who come into the store. So it is specifically a sort of club. And we do want to have all kinds of events. At the moment, we're just focused on the store and growing the team to the point where we can also have events and book clubs and workshops and things like that. Absolutely.
What period of time or what style in art and culture inspires you?
Ooh, it's a tough one. I think I go through different phases. For the first many years of the Letterist, I was very, very drawn to minimalism and sort of all things Scandinavian, Nordic, all these very cool, calm, considered kind of interiors and sort of the minimalism of Swiss graphic design and posters, Helvetica, everything done in one font. But I also have a background in literature. I studied French and German and Russian literature. I mean, it depends on the project, depends on the mood. Everything from 17th century onwards can find its place kind of in the world, but probably the more modern, abstract. I love conceptual art. I mean, I love things where the meaning is really the work, the concept behind rather than the execution.
I saw your wall with the quotes of the women writers. How it appeared, how this idea came into your mind, and why you created this?
For me, quotes, I mean, are kind of the beginning of this business. I love them as a very sort of short form literature, especially in this day and age where everyone's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. I constantly research quotes, write them down, turn them into products, turn them into Instagram captions or content. We have a calendar every year that has a quote on every month. So we wanted to do something for the month of March, around March 8th, International Women's Day, that would be a little bit interactive. There's a lot of talk of the universe and manifesting and kind of looking for signs. And so we created a wall of envelopes where the idea was that a woman could kind of walk up to it and let one somehow speak to her, like a lottery, to pick up a quote. And we put in, again, quotes by artists, writers, photographers, poets, women that inspire me, whose work I've kind of followed and admired for years. They were handwritten. This is the funny thing that a lot of people say, your handwriting's so beautiful, but it's impenetrable, it's illegible. And so I think some people were kind of admiring the beauty of the quote visually rather than being able to read it. But quotes have always been a central part of the Letterist and what we do and what inspires me. What I love sometimes is late at night I'll be reading quotes and it'll be like the teaser or the trailer that makes me go and pick up the book and read the whole book.
And who are your favorite female artists and female writers?
I should have written this down last night. Joan Didion, for sure. Adrienne Rich is a poet I love. Toni Morrison, the novelist. Frida Kahlo, Susan Sontag, Annie Leibovitz. Artists, writers, painters, poets. A lot of these, even the artists and the photographers are women who kind of wrote beautifully. That for me is like the way to my heart through words. So a lot of them who either kept diaries or sent letters find very inspiring, and I go back and kind of revisit the same quotes at different parts of my life and see them from a different point of view.
What do you think about AI? Does it affect your work at all? Because what you do is like very, very physical, but AI is everywhere now.
Well, a lot of what we do is on the computer, and we use a lot of software and programs and digital assets, regardless of the fact that the result is often physical. I love AI. I use a lot of ChatGPT and Claude for, brainstorming, writing, editing. Sometimes removing the emotion from my communication. He'll often tell me, like, this is a great email, but let's strip it of emotion before we send it to somebody. We've been using a lot for brainstorming. I don't think it's good. It gets better and better all the time. I don't think it's good enough. I always want to edit it. It's funny, I was telling someone the other day, like, it's supposed to save you time, but instead it ends up just opening up a whole conversation between me and Claude or me and ChatGPT about, let's rework this some more. For years and years I worked alone. Another head in the room, regardless of whether it's a real head or not, is always helpful. And we've used it occasionally for some visual things. What I love about it sometimes is even the kind of mistakes that it makes. If you say, oh, give me a room with a chess table in the middle of it, sometimes it'll make the wall chess as well, or the carpet, or the lamp.
Yeah, their brain work very differently from ours.
So sometimes it does these kind of wacky, almost childlike things that inspire you even more than you expected or give you something that you would never cross your mind. But I don't feel that a product or an idea is good enough unless I've really lived in it and worked on it. So it's an assistant as far as I'm concerned. And I think it lacks soul. I mean, I can see now everyone's using it for their copywriting of Instagram captions. And it's this very kind of sugary, flowery language that has become recognizably kind of fake. You know, it's a heritage, timeless, classic. There's words that keep coming up. I think it's great to use, but not to like give yourself over to completely.
And would you say that your creative process in general changed over the years? And if so, then how it happened?
A little bit. I mean, when I was in design school, our teachers, our professors were very, very insistent on kind of sketching an idea out by hand before sitting down at the screen, which I don't do anymore, very rarely. I've gotten a lot faster with the initial steps of visualizing what I want to create. So I usually just, I mean, I'm quite strict about the design process, starting with inspiration and research. So I'll always look up. I love Pinterest. I live on Pinterest. But also, I mean, also in the physical world, traveling, collecting pieces of paper, business cards, books. I'll go to bookstores and just photograph covers because the design of the cover or the type or the color is inspiring to me. So I always start with research and inspiration, and then I draw out a bunch of things. And it's quite, for me, instinctive and almost kind of magical. I just feel when something's right. And then I feel oftentimes I'm a bit obsessive, a bit of a perfectionist, that I have to spend 100 more hours making it right, making it perfect. That over the years, what's gotten better, what's changed is that I've gotten a lot faster and a lot freer with, I can now do something in 7 minutes and be thrilled with it. I used to spend 7 days doing to feel like, oh, it has to be good. So I think you build up this sort of reservoir of tricks that become easy to kind of spit out the more you work.
Your work is so creative, and I wonder how, if even, do you draw the line between your work and yourself?
It's a tough question. I mean, I worked almost alone for about 10 years. Of course, I always had help with some of the more manual and logistical aspects. So many of my earliest clients are friends. So many of my team members are family. There were weddings I was invited to be the maid of honor and the invitation designer. So the lines were always blurry in a kind of beautiful way. Things have changed a little bit since I have a team and since we have the store. I feel like I've finally been able to draw a clear line between the letterist and Anja, and the letterist has become something that other people can own and create and buy into, and a voice that isn't anymore simply my own. It's a kind of character and a brand that my team just as beautifully kind of live inside of and create for. But I do work a lot. And I mean, I'm passionate and creative, and I can go for a coffee with a friend who's in business and end up talking for half an hour about their Instagram or their logo or what their name of their business should be. So there isn't ever a clear line, and creativity is something that comes naturally to me, that I love, that sort of feeds me. So it's not something that I say, okay, now I'm going to stop. Only maybe when I go to the beach, I really kind of turn off and swim and read and nap, and the rest of my life is pretty sort of intensely in a creative.
And is it hard for you to balance the creative part and the business part? Because for some people, there are some business decisions that can like kill their creativity, or is it aligned for you?
I think it's a little bit of a myth that, or a stereotype, that artists, don't do business well. Of course, the creativity comes more naturally to me, but it's, it's been a business from day one, and I've learned a lot of there's no skipping or avoiding the business decisions or the administrative tasks. And the bigger it gets for me, the more exciting it gets. It's every day there's something new to learn, whether it's HR related or legal or sales or tax or whatever it is. And I try to just sort of go into it with the attitude of someone who's learning and growing every day rather than an artist who is kind of annoyed that we've got to have declarations and things. So yeah, I think it's definitely a mindset to work on.
Are there any ethical principles that are like very important to you keep in your work? Like projects you wouldn't work with because they are against your values or something like that?
I think, again, this is something I approach intuitively. A lot of the work that we do, a lot of the projects that we do and clients we work with are kind of long-term. They end up being 6 months to a year and oftentimes longer than that. It's more about how we get along, how able, I think it's very important for the client to be able to clearly communicate what they want and to know what they want. And in the cases where they don't, to be able to leave room for us to come in or me to come in and for them to hear my feedback. So I think, respect, first of all, basic human respect, and then respect for what we do. I think design is sometimes undervalued. It's the kind of thing that everyone thinks they have an opinion and their opinion is valid on what color they like, whereas we look at the choice of color for a brand in a much more kind of strategic and scientific way. So I think respect, I've on occasion kind of dropped a client or a project because they were rude, and I think it's my right to do so. People will often say, I think men will often say to women in business, don't be so emotional about it. But everything that we create is emotional. And I really do put a lot of heart and soul and effort, and oftentimes a lot of extra effort, despite what we've kind of quoted for or agreed on, because I want to be proud of the work that we create or because it excited me. And if you're not going to, shake my hand at the end of the day, I don't want to work with you.
I also wanted to ask you about being a woman entrepreneur, because there is very interesting statistics, for example, that women founders tend to earn more per every dollar that is invested in their business, that they're much more effective, so to speak, but they don't get a lot of investment, and sometimes they're not viewed like as serious in business. Do you notice it yourself, or is it different for you as a woman than for your man colleague?
I think there's definitely a difference. We're far from having true equality, and there's a highlighted difference because of the nature of this work and it being kind of creative. I've heard even from a lot of creative colleagues, women who are florists or wedding photographers or event planners, that these are kind of girly or female hobby-like jobs that men won't take seriously, or their partners will say, oh, are you still playing? I've had friends who over 10 years would call me and say, are you still playing around with cards and envelopes? I don't, the longer you're in it, the less you sort of care what people think and what people's perspectives are on what you're doing or how serious it is or how successful it is. I think regardless of whether you're in creative design work or finance or legal, for me, the thing is about working hard and growing. And I think things are changing the more that I work here as well. I've been working with a lot of women, networking with a lot of women. I heard on a podcast recently, a business woman in America said, the men in business for years and decades had these clubs, golf clubs, and occasions where they would network and kind of help each other out, even outside of the office. And I think that is starting to happen more and more for women. And I think we are incredibly sort of powerful if we unite and collaborate and network. And I'm thrilled to have a female team. I'm thrilled to have worked for over 10 years, almost exclusively with really, really incredible and inspiring women in the wedding world, in the events world, in creative industries. I think we're all creative in a way, you know, and when people say, oh, you can't just look at the creative aspects, you look at women who are running households and families of 4 kids. They're doing so with the help of a lot of creativity and a lot of hard work, not necessarily a strict old-fashioned spreadsheet and business.
And do you see that support of other women is like growing stronger, or is internal misogyny is still there, still a part of this world? I mean, it's definitely still a part of this world, but do you feel that it's getting better?
I think I've never felt that. Maybe it's specific to the Letterist or the kind of work that we create. I've always, from day one, had the incredible support of women, both from like friends who have bought my products or referred me to someone or ordered, or we've worked on a custom project. I had friends in the early days who would come and work at my event. They would just volunteer. They would say, oh, you're having a gallery exhibition. I want to be there. I want to sell. So I've never really felt that internal misogyny.
Yeah. What feels the most important in your work right now?
In our work right now? Well, process. I kind of setting up systems and procedures to enable us to be more efficient in what we do and to enable us to grow. I really want to grow, and it's I maybe spent too long doing a lot on my own, and the business kind of evolved in a lot of different directions, all kind of in the palms of my hands. And now it's about developing systems that are going to, and it was a very family sort of run thing. I had the help of my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, organically grew, and have my mom who knows how to pack 350 wedding invitations. Now it's about how do we turn that into a procedure that a team of 5 employees will be able to do tomorrow, and how do we do it efficiently, and where do we keep all this information? We're kind of in the constant web of Google Drive sheets and cards and lists, and now it's all really about organization. The creativity is there, the products are there, the brand is strong, the marketing we always have ideas for. So now it's about 300 new products are coming in tomorrow. Where do they go? Who's labeled them? Who's counted them? I've kind of started with the family thing, and it has a little bit that feeling still where we're roommates, and who's home will open the door. But we need to start formalizing some of those processes so that we become efficient and leave room for new projects and new ideas.
Is it hard, or does it come like more naturally to you?
I personally love it. I mean, I've created a lot of the structures even on my own over the years. I like organization. I always even tell my team, you can't be a designer, you can't be a creative without organizing. I mean, a lot of even just starting a design project, if you're going to design a book, the very first step is to organize everything that's going to go in the book. You can't just be creative. So I personally love structure. I think it only, if it's done well, if you invest the time to set these things up, they only leave you more room for the fun parts.
And there are a lot of beautiful bookstores in Belgrade. Do you feel that Serbian people read a lot?
I didn't grow up here, but I've spent almost every summer of my life coming back, and every single person I know here has at some point, at least once, bought me a book as a gift. I think that's a very, very traditional thing in Serbian culture, which I love. It's a gift that's kind of affordable, but incredibly valuable and meaningful. I've been hearing about a lot of book clubs starting. I go to bookstores all the time, and I see them full all the time. There's some in my neighborhood that are open on Saturdays and Sundays in the evening, and they have little coffee shops, and they're always full. So I think one of the beautiful things about Belgrade being a little bit slower, a little bit more behind in comparison to some more developed Western countries is that, they haven't been replaced by mega brands. They're still very much alive and thriving. And I know so many people who are not at all professionally in a literary context, but go to the book expo every year. And one of my employees went yesterday before work to a bookstore and bought a book and showed up with a book to work. It's something that makes me very happy.
Do you have a dream?
I do, to open a bookstore. While we're on this subject, it's something that we're starting to think about. We have at the moment in our shop just this tiny little shelf of, 20 to 30 books, but we want to do something much bigger than that.
Do you imagine it as a bookstore with all kinds of books or a curated collection of some sort?
Definitely a curated collection because the aesthetics are very important. We have a lot of exciting ideas. I mean, I have a lot of unusual ideas for how I imagine this bookstore. We already have some coffee table books. Those are always beautiful design, art, photography, fashion books that are beautifully made, but definitely also some used books and novels and poetry and potentially books that we've designed ourselves.
Do you enjoy antique stuff?
I do. I almost go every Sunday. I joke that it's my church on Sunday. If you write to me between 11 and 2 p.m., I'm probably somewhere buying antiques. It's fun. It's definitely something that I've started doing more intentionally because of this store. We have constantly antiques that come in and out. I think it's beautiful to have these objects that have so much meaning and that are so unique. For me, it feels like you find something that is somehow meant to be yours, and it feels so much more enriching to buy a product that's not, new and mass-made, and it feels like it sort of found its way to you at a particular moment. I found a couple of weeks ago at an antique store just a small vinyl of Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive," and it's red.
Wow.
And the guy was so blown away with how my reaction to it that he just gave it to me. He said, "Please have this," and it's now sitting in my kitchen.
It's beautiful.
So yes, very much. And it's something that I hope that we will sell more and more of in the store as well.
Do you think that we as society in general need to slow down a bit and pay more attention to details, to the beauty of things?
I don't know. Since we opened up the store, people have kind of put me in this pigeonhole of being analog and being slow and being whatever. I am the last person on the planet. I don't do anything slow. We definitely need to find antidotes to screen time, myself included, because we sell sort of paper and letters, and people assume that I'm kind of sitting around all day writing letters. I'm not doing that by any means. Like most people, I'm working, I'm staring at a screen 12 to 14 hours a day, one or the other. The minute I finish with one screen, I go to bed with the other one. So I definitely think we need to find a way to tune out all the information that comes at us on a daily basis, especially women who get harassed, I think, by advertising on Instagram and a constant sort of messaging that you need to fix yourself in one way or another, inside, outside, top to bottom. I think that's exhausting. And I hope that what we're creating here is simply one of those tiny avenues to make that happen.
And if you had to describe like what you are really building in this space, like the essence of it, what would it be?
I was thinking about how the very beginning was these inspiring quotes, and really what at the time, now almost 12 years ago, I felt so inspired that my only mission was to inspire other people. It was like I had discovered some sort of gold and I wanted to share the treasure with everyone. And I think in some ways that hasn't changed. And it's been beautiful to see people who walk in here, and then everyone who walks out of the door says, "Thank you so much, I'm so inspired." So what we're trying to create, I mean, I've been joking and calling it the Museum of Love, a place, and that's what happens. People have come back 2, 3, 4 times in the last 2, 3 months, say, I was having a day or I was having a week, I just needed to come somewhere where I would get inspired, where I would get uplifted, where I would feel good, where I would leave with something in hand that will carry me through my work or my week or whatever is going on. It feeds me. There are times when you get lost in the business of why hasn't anyone vacuumed the rug? Or this is late, or this isn't done properly, or we're late and hurrying. And then every day that somebody walks in and is blown away, it kind of gives the energy then back to me. It's a constant cycle of, we take note of what people are are drawn to and enjoying. A lot of people have mentioned the smell here, which is a diptyque candle. And then it makes me think, oh, what else can we do with smells? So it's wonderful, you give and you get constantly, and I'm so glad that people have had that reaction to it.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to kind of relive some of these early things and to think about, to kind of step outside of the operations and think about the bigger picture.
Thank you for sharing this.